I thought I knew my wife after 15 years of marriage. I thought our locked bedroom door was broken until I heard a man's voice inside. What I discovered wasn't just one affair. It was a web of lies that nearly killed me. But when my unfaithful wife came home expecting her double life to continue, she found an empty house. That was just the beginning. My name is Lloyd Fox. I'm 47 years old, and I've been the regional manager for a restaurant chain for the past 12 years. It's demanding work, but it pays well enough to support my wife, Bridget, our 7-year-old daughter, Emma, our 17-year-old son, Theodore, plus my brother's kids, Owen and Lily, who've been living with us since he passed away 3 years ago. Owen's 14 now, Lily's 12, and they've become like my own children. For 15 years, I thought Bridget and I had built something solid. She worked part-time doing social media marketing from home, which gave her flexibility to handle the kids' schedules. We had our routine, our little traditions, our inside jokes. Sure, every marriage has its rough patches, but I genuinely believed we were happy. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday in October. I'd finished my regional inspection early and decided to surprise the family by coming home around 4 in the afternoon instead of my usual 7 o'clock arrival. I picked up some of those fancy cupcakes from the bakery that Emma loves, thinking we could have an impromptu celebration for nothing in particular. When I pulled into her driveway, Bridget's car was there, which wasn't unusual since she worked from home. But something felt different the moment I walked through the front door. The house was too quiet. Normally, I'd hear Emma playing in the living room or Bridget on a conference call in her home office. But there was nothing. I called out, "Bridget? Kids? Anybody home?" No response. Emma should have been back from school by now, and Theodore usually got home around this time too. Owen and Lily took the bus that arrived at 3:30. I set the cupcakes on the kitchen counter and walked toward Bridget's office. The door was closed, which struck me as odd. In all our years of marriage, she never closed that door during the day unless she was on an important video call. Even then, she usually left it slightly open. I knocked gently. "Bridget, you in there?" "Lloyd." Her voice came through the door, sounding startled, almost panicked. "You're home early. I'm just finishing up some work. Give me a few minutes, okay?" Something in her tone made my stomach twist. She sounded breathless, like she'd been running or lifting something heavy. I tried the door handle. Locked. In 15 years of marriage, she'd never locked that office door. "What kind of work requires a locked door?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Client confidentiality stuff," she replied quickly. "You know how it is. I'll be out in just a minute." But then I heard it. A low rustling sound, like fabric moving, followed by what sounded distinctly like a man's voice whispering something I couldn't make out. My heart started pounding, so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Bridget, who's in there with you?" The silence that followed lasted about 10 seconds too long. "Nobody," she finally answered, but her voice had that high-pitched quality it got when she was lying. "I'm watching training video. The volume's up pretty loud." I stepped closer to the door, pressing my ear against it. More rustling, definitely movement, and then I heard a distinctly male clearing of throat. "Open the door, Bridget." My voice came out harder than I intended. "Lloyd, please." I said I'll be out in a minute. That's when I stopped being the trusting husband and became something else entirely. I didn't wait for an answer. After 15 years of marriage and raising 4 kids together, I knew when my wife was lying to me. The rustling sounds behind that door, the man's voice, the panic in Bridget's tone, it all added up to something I never thought I'd have to face. I stepped back from the door and drove my shoulder into it hard. The frame splintered on the second hit, and the door swung open so fast it slammed against the wall. What I saw will be burned in my memory forever. Bridget was standing beside her desk chair, her blouse buttoned wrong and her hair disheveled. And there, scrambling to pull on his shirt near the window, was a man I'd never seen before. He looked younger than me, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of build that screamed personal trainer or gym rat. For a moment, nobody said anything. The 3 of us just stood there in this horrible tableau, like actors who'd forgotten their lines. "Lloyd," Bridget finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can explain." The man, this stranger who'd been in my house, in my wife's office, grabbed his shoes and made a move toward the door. I stepped directly into his path. "I don't think so, buddy," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "You're not going anywhere until I get some answers." He looked at Bridget, then back at me, clearly trying to decide if he could push past me. He was bigger than me, but I've been handling restaurant staff and difficult vendors for over a decade. I know how to project authority when I need to. Look, man, he said, his voice shaking slightly. This is between you and your wife. I should go. No, I replied, crossing my arms. This involves me now, so it involves you. What's your name? Lance, he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. Lance what? Turner. I looked at Bridget, who was now sitting in her chair looking like she might throw up. How long, Bridget? She didn't answer immediately, so I asked again, louder this time. How long has this been going on? 3 months, she whispered. 3 months. While I was working 12-hour days to keep our restaurant locations profitable, while I was helping Owen with his algebra and reading bedtime stories to Emma, while I was being a husband and father, she was sneaking around with Lance Turner. Where are the kids? I asked suddenly, the realization hitting me that the house was too quiet. Emma's at soccer practice, Bridget said softly. Theodore's at work. Owen and Lily are at their friend's house. I felt something inside me snap. Not rage, exactly, but something colder and more focused. Get out, I told Lance. He didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his jacket and bolted from the room. I heard the front door slam a few seconds later. Then it was just me and Bridget, staring at each other across the wreckage of our marriage. Lloyd, please, she started. Let me explain. It's not what you think. It's not what I think. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I just caught you half-dressed with another man in our house. What exactly should I think? She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. Our marriage has been dead for years. We're like roommates, not husband and wife. I needed to feel alive again. So, you decided to feel alive with Lance Turner while our kids were at school. It just happened, she said weakly. Things like this don't just happen, Bridget. You made choices. A lot of them. I walked out of that office without another word to Bridget. There was nothing more to discuss at that moment. She'd made her choices, and now I was going to make mine. The first thing I did was grab my phone and call Theodore's job at the auto parts store. Theodore Fox speaking. My son answered in his professional voice. Ted, it's Dad, I said. I need you to come home right now. Is everything okay? There was concern in his voice. Theodore might be 17, but he's always been mature for his age. Just come home. Don't ask questions right now. Next, I called Emma's soccer coach and told him I'd be picking her up early. Then I reached out to the parents whose house Owen and Lily were visiting. While I waited for the kids to get home, I went upstairs to my bedroom and pulled out 2 large duffel bags from the closet. I started packing clothes for myself and the kids. Not everything, just enough for several days. I wasn't sure where we were going yet, but I knew we couldn't stay in this house tonight. Bridget appeared in the doorway, watching me pack. Lloyd, what are you doing? I'm taking the kids somewhere safe, I said without looking at her. Safe? Safe from what? I'm their mother. I stopped packing and turned to face her. Are you? Because mothers don't usually bring strange men into the house while their children could walk in at any moment. The kids weren't supposed to be home, she protested. That's your defense? That you timed your affair around the kids' schedules? She crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. We need to talk about this like adults. We're done talking, Bridget. You made your choice when you locked that office door. Theodore arrived home first, taking one look at the packed bags and the tension between his parents. Dad, he said quietly. What's going on? Your mother and I are having some problems, I told him. We're going to stay somewhere else for a few days while we figure things out. Theodore nodded. He was smart enough not to push for details right then. When Emma got home, I knelt down to her level. Hey, sweetheart, how about we go on a little adventure? Just you, me, Theodore, Owen, and Lily. Her eyes lit up. Like camping. Something like that. Owen and Lily arrived home to find us loading the car. Owen, always perceptive, immediately sensed something was wrong. Uncle Lloyd, he said quietly, pulling me aside. Are you and Aunt Bridget getting divorced? The question hit me harder than I expected. Owen had already lost his parents. The last thing I wanted was for him and Lily to feel like they were losing another family. I don't know yet, buddy, I told him honestly. But no matter what happens, you and Lily are part of this family. That's never going to change. As we drove away from the house, I couldn't help but think about Bridget coming home later, expecting to continue her double life, only to find an empty house. My unfaithful wife would come home happy from her date with her lover, but the kids and I would already be gone. That would just be the start of my revenge. We ended up at a Hampton Inn about 20 miles from home. It wasn't the Ritz, but it had a pool for Emma and connecting rooms so I could keep an eye on everyone. As I checked us into 2 adjoining rooms, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: clarity. The kids were remarkably adaptable. Theodore helped me get everyone settled while Emma immediately wanted to explore the hotel. Owen and Lily stuck close to me, still processing the sudden change in their lives. "Uncle Lloyd," Lily said quietly as we sat by the pool later that evening, "is this because of what Aunt Bridget did? Kids see more than we think they do." Lily had always been perceptive, probably from having to grow up too fast after losing her parents. "Yes," I told her honestly. "Aunt Bridget made some choices that hurt our family." "Are we going to be okay?" Owen asked. "We're going to be better than okay," I said firmly. "I promise you that." My phone had been buzzing constantly since we left. Bridget had sent dozens of texts, ranging from angry to pleading to threatening. I finally decided to read them while the kids were watching TV in their room. "Lloyd, you can't just take the kids like this. We need to talk. Come home. You're being childish. This affects the children too. If you don't bring them back, I'm calling the police." I showed the messages to Theodore, who'd become my unofficial second-in-command. "She's really going to call the cops on you for taking us away for a few days?" he asked, incredulous. "She might try," I said. "But legally, I have every right to take you kids anywhere I want. I'm your father, and I'm not kidnapping anyone." That evening, I sat down with my laptop and started researching divorce lawyers. I also began documenting everything I could remember about the past few months: Bridget's changed behavior, her mysterious appointments, her new clothes, and sudden interest in fitness. I called my brother-in-law Pete, who'd gone through a messy divorce 5 years earlier. "Lloyd," Pete said when he answered. "What's going on?" "Bridget's having an affair," I told him bluntly. "I caught her with a guy in our house today." There was a long pause. "Jesus, Lloyd. I'm sorry, man. What can I do?" "I need the name of that lawyer you used." "Gerald Hendricks. He's expensive, but he's ruthless when he needs to be." "Want me to call him for you?" "Yeah. Tell him it's urgent." After I hung up, I realized I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: determination. Not anger, not hurt, though both were there, but a clear sense of purpose. My phone rang. It was Anita, Bridget's best friend. "Lloyd," she said carefully, "Bridget called me. She's really upset." "I bet she is. Look, I know this is none of my business, but don't you think you're being a little extreme? Taking the kids and leaving like that?" I was quiet for a long moment. "Anita, did you know?" "Know what?" "About Lance Turner. About the affair." Another pause. "I suspected something, but—" "You suspected, but you didn't say anything to me." "It wasn't my place. It wasn't your place to warn me that my wife was cheating, but it is your place to call and tell me I'm overreacting when I find out." "Lloyd, that's not what I—" I hung up. If Bridget's best friend knew something was going on, how many other people in our circle had been watching my marriage fall apart while I remained oblivious? Gerald Hendricks called me back at 7 the next morning. His voice was crisp and professional. "Lloyd Fox, Pete mentioned you need legal representation. Adultery case." "That's right. I caught my wife with another man in our house yesterday." "Do you have evidence?" "I saw them together. There's probably more if we dig deeper." "Good. We'll need everything we can get. My retainer is $5,000. I didn't hesitate. "Done." After breakfast with the kids, I drove back toward town while they stayed at the hotel pool with Theodore supervising. I had a mission, and it wasn't just about Lance Turner. While researching Bridget's recent behavior, I noticed something in her email patterns. She'd been corresponding with someone named Daniel Stone. The name nagged at me until it finally clicked. Daniel Stone had been Bridget's boyfriend in college, before we met. They'd dated for 2 years, and according to mutual friends, it had been serious. I parked outside the coffee shop where Daniel worked as a manager. Through the window, I could see him behind the counter, still looking like the college athlete he'd been 20 years ago. Tall, dark hair now touched with gray, but clearly staying in shape. I walked in and ordered a coffee, watching him work. He didn't recognize me immediately, which wasn't surprising since we'd only met briefly at a few college parties. "Daniel Stone," I said when he handed me my coffee. He looked up puzzled. "Yeah. Do I know you?" "Lloyd Fox. I'm married to Bridget Richardson." "Well, Bridget Fox now." His expression changed instantly. Surprise, then something that looked like guilt. "Lloyd," he said carefully, "what brings you here?" "Just want to catch up," I said casually. Bridget mentioned you two had been in touch recently. He glanced around nervously. Look, maybe this isn't the best place to talk. Why not? We're just old friends catching up, right? Daniel stepped out from behind the counter. Can we talk outside? We walked to the parking lot, and I could see him weighing his words carefully. How long have you and Bridget been talking? I asked directly. He sighed. About 6 months. She reached out on Facebook, said she was going through a rough patch. What kind of rough patch? She said you two were having problems, that you'd grown distant. I nodded slowly. And you decided to help her through this rough patch? We just talked, he said defensively. She needed someone to listen. Just talked. Because I found hotel receipts, Daniel. Hotels you both visited. His face went pale. That was only twice. We were confused. So there it was. Not just Lance Turner, but Daniel Stone too. My wife hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been rekindling old flames and starting new ones simultaneously. Does Lance Turner know about you? I asked. Daniel looked confused. Who's Lance Turner? I almost laughed. Poor Bridget was juggling multiple relationships, and none of her lovers knew about the others. Never mind, I said. Thanks for being honest, Daniel. More honest than my wife has been. I walked back to my car, leaving him standing there looking devastated. 2 men down, and probably more to discover. I found Lance Turner at the gym, where he worked as a personal trainer. Peak Performance Fitness was one of those upscale places where middle-aged people paid premium prices to feel young again. The irony wasn't lost on me. He was working with a client, some woman in her 50s who was clearly more interested in his attention than his fitness advice. I waited until their session ended, then approached him as he cleaned the equipment. Lance Turner, I said calmly. He turned, and I saw recognition and fear flash across his face. Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Neither do I replied. I just want to have a conversation. Like adults. He glanced around the gym, probably calculating whether he could call for security. What do you want to talk about? My wife. And you. And what happens next? He set down his towel. There's nothing to talk about. It's over between us. Really? Because according to her phone records, you two were texting as recently as this morning. His face went pale. You're going through her phone? I'm protecting my family. Something you should understand, since you've made yourself part of it. We stared at each other for a long moment. Lance was bigger than me, younger, more muscular. But I could see something in his eyes that told me everything I needed to know. He was all surface, no substance. How long have you been sleeping with married women, Lance? What? It's a simple question. Is my wife your first affair, or are there others? He looked uncomfortable. That's none of your business. Actually, it is my business. Because if you're making a habit of destroying families, then other husbands deserve to know what kind of man you are. Look, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Bridget told me you two were separated. She said you were getting divorced. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Did she? What else did she tell you? That you were controlling. That you didn't care about her anymore. And you believe that? Just like that. She was lonely. She needed someone who understood her. What you mean is, she was easy prey. A married woman looking for excitement. Willing to believe whatever story you fed her. His jaw tightened. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Tell me, Lance, what's your usual routine? Find an unhappy wife. Tell her how special she is, how her husband doesn't appreciate her, then move in for the kill. You don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed him some photos Pete had sent me from social media. Recognize these women? All married. All around Bridget's age. All having affairs with fitness instructors who look remarkably like you. He stared at the photos, his confidence evaporating. Here's what's going to happen, Lance. You're going to disappear from my wife's life, completely. No texts, no calls, no accidental meetings at the grocery store. Because if I find out you've contacted her again, I'm going to make sure every woman in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are. You can't threaten me, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. My wife made a mistake, but you made a choice to pursue a married woman. Own that choice and live with the consequences. Gerald Hendricks had everything we needed to file for divorce within 48 hours. The evidence against Bridget was overwhelming. 2 affairs running simultaneously, financial deception, and bringing strangers into our family home. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. I was reviewing legal documents in the hotel lobby when the chest pain started. Sharp, stabbing sensations that made me break out in a cold sweat. At first, I thought it was stress. God knows I had enough reasons to feel overwhelmed. Theodore found me slumped in a chair, struggling to breathe. "Dad," he shouted, running over. "What's wrong?" "Call 911. I managed to say before everything went black. I woke up in the cardiac unit at Memorial Hospital with Theodore, Owen, Lily, and Emma gathered around my bed. The doctor, a stern woman in her 50s, was explaining something about blood pressure and stress-induced cardiac events. "Mr. Fox," she said when she saw I was conscious, "you've had what we call a hypertensive crisis. Your blood pressure spiked to dangerous levels, causing severe chest pain and temporary loss of consciousness." "Am I having a heart attack?" I asked. "No, but you're at serious risk of one if we don't get this under control immediately." "How much stress have you been under recently?" Theodore answered before I could. "My parents are getting divorced. Dad just found out Mom was cheating on him." The doctor nodded knowingly. "That would explain it. Mr. Fox, I'm putting you on medication immediately, and you need to eliminate stress from your life as much as possible." "I can't eliminate stress," I told her. "I'm in the middle of a custody battle." "Then you need to find healthier ways to manage it, or the next time you come in here might be for a real heart attack." After she left, Emma climbed carefully onto my hospital bed. "Daddy, are you going to be okay?" she asked, her little voice trembling. "I'm going to be fine, sweetheart," I promised, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. My phone buzzed with a text from Bridget. "I heard you're in the hospital. I'm coming to see you." I texted back, "Don't." But she came anyway. I saw her through the window, arguing with the nurse about visiting hours. When she finally made it into my room, she looked genuinely concerned. "Lloyd," she said softly, "I'm so sorry." "Sorry about what?" I asked. "The affairs or the fact that finding out about them nearly killed me. I never wanted this to happen. But it did happen. And now I'm lying in a hospital bed with heart problems while our kids are terrified their father might die." She sat down in the chair beside my bed. "What can I do?" "You can sign the divorce papers Gerald is preparing. You can agree to joint custody without a fight. And you can disappear from our lives until I'm healthy enough to deal with this mess you created." For the first time since I caught her, Bridget looked truly ashamed. I was released from the hospital after 2 days with a prescription for blood pressure medication and strict orders to avoid stress. Easier said than done when your entire life has been turned upside down. The kids and I returned to the hotel, but something had changed. The health scare had shifted the dynamic of our situation from temporary displacement to serious crisis management. "Uncle Lloyd," Owen said as we sat by the hotel pool that evening, "are you going to be okay to take care of us?" It was a question that cut right to the heart of my fears. If my health continued to deteriorate, what would happen to Owen and Lily? They'd already lost their parents. The thought of them losing me too was unbearable. "I'm going to take better care of myself," I promised him. "That means eating better, exercising more, and not letting your Aunt Bridget's problems become my problems." But that was easier said than done. The next morning, I got a call from Gerald Hendricks with news that made my blood pressure spike again. "Lloyd, we have a problem. Bridget's lawyer is claiming you're mentally unstable. They're using your hospitalization to argue that you're unfit to have custody of the children." "That's ridiculous," I said. I had a stress reaction to discovering my wife's affairs. "I know that, and you know that, but they're going to paint it as an inability to handle parental responsibilities under pressure." I felt the familiar tightness in my chest starting to build. "What do? We fight it. But you need to demonstrate that you're managing your health properly. Doctor's visits, medication compliance, stress management techniques. We need to show the court that you're taking this seriously." After I hung up, I realized Bridget was playing a much more sophisticated game than I'd given her credit for. She wasn't just defending herself. She was going on the offensive, using my own health crisis against me. That evening, she called me directly. "Lloyd," she said, "I heard about what my lawyer is planning. I want you to know that wasn't my idea." "Wasn't it?" "No. I told her about your hospital stay because I was worried about you, not to use it against you in court. But she's using it anyway. I can stop it. I can tell her to back down." "What do you want in return, Bridget?" There was a long pause. "I want to see the kids. I want shared custody. And I want to work this out without destroying each other." For the first time since catching her with Lance, she sounded like the woman I'd married 15 years ago. But I'd learned not to trust appearances when it came to my wife. "I'll think about it," I said. but I was already planning my next move. The custody hearing was scheduled for a cold Thursday morning in November. I've been managing my blood pressure with medication and regular doctor visits, but I could feel the stress building as the date approached. Gerald Hendricks met me at the courthouse steps. "Remember, stay calm no matter what they throw at you. We have the evidence, we have the moral high ground, and we have the children's best interests on our side." Bridget arrived with her lawyer looking more composed than I'd seen her since this whole mess started. She'd gotten her hair done, bought a new conservative outfit, and was clearly trying to project the image of a devoted mother fighting for her children. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, listened carefully as both sides presented their cases. Bridget's lawyer painted me as an unstable man who'd overreacted to marital problems and whose health issues made him unfit for primary custody. But Gerald was ready for them. He presented the evidence methodically, the affairs with both Lance Turner and Daniel Stone, the lies, the financial deception, and most importantly, the testimony from the children themselves. Theodore, now 18 and legally able to speak for himself, was devastating in his testimony. "Your Honor," he said clearly, "my father has been the stable parent throughout this entire situation. While my mother was carrying on relationships with other men, my father was working to support our family and taking care of my cousins who lost their parents. I want to live with my father." Even Emma, coached gently by our lawyer, was able to express that she felt safer with me. The judge's decision was swift and decisive. Primary custody to me, with supervised visitation for Bridget until she could demonstrate stability. The family home would be sold, with the proceeds split equally. Bridget would be responsible for paying back the money she'd spent on her affairs. As we left the courthouse, Bridget approached me one last time. "Lloyd," she said quietly, "I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I never stopped loving you." "If that's what you call love," I replied, "then I'm better off without it." 6 months later, Owen, Lily, Theodore, Emma, and I moved into a smaller house across town. It wasn't as grand as our old place, but it was ours. No lies, no secrets, no strangers lurking in locked rooms. My blood pressure was under control, my relationship with the kids was stronger than ever, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe freely. Bridget eventually moved to another state to start over. She sends cards on birthdays and holidays, but she's become what she should have been from the beginning, a distant memory of a life that almost destroyed us all. 1 year after catching Bridget with Lance Turner, I was standing in the kitchen of our new house, making pancake for the kids on a Saturday morning. It had become our tradition, weekend breakfast together, no phones, no distractions, just family time. Emma ran in wearing her soccer uniform, ready for her game. "Daddy, will you come watch me play today?" "Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart." Theodore appeared in the doorway, home from his first semester of college. "Dad, I need to tell you something." My heart skipped a beat. After everything we'd been through, unexpected announcements still made me nervous. "Mom called me yesterday," he continued. "She wanted me to ask if she could come to Emma's graduation ceremony next month." Emma's elementary school graduation. Such a small thing, but Bridget had missed so many milestones already. "What do you think?" I asked him. "I think Emma deserves to have her mother there, even if it's weird for the rest of us. That's my son, wise beyond his years." Owen and Lily bounded down the stairs, arguing about who got the last piece of bacon. They'd both been thriving this past year. Owen made the honor roll, and Lily joined the drama club. Having stability in their lives had allowed them to be kids again instead of worrying about adult problems. "Uncle Lloyd," Lily said, tugging on my sleeve, "Mrs. Patterson wants to know if you're coming to the school fundraiser next Friday." Mrs. Patterson was Lily's teacher, a divorced woman about my age who'd been making increasingly obvious attempts to spend time with me. The kids had noticed, of course. They missed nothing. "Are you going to ask her on a date?" Owen asked with a grin. "Maybe," I admitted. "Would that be okay with you guys?" "As long as she's nice to us," Emma said practically. "And as long as she doesn't lock any doors," Theodore added with dark humor. I laughed, amazed that we could joke about it now. Time really does heal wounds, even deep ones. That evening, after Emma's soccer game, which we won 3-2, I sat on the back porch with a beer, watching the kids play in the yard. Theodore was teaching Owen how to throw a curveball, while Emma and Lily practiced cartwheels on grass. My phone buzzed with a text from Gerald Hendricks. Bridget's lawyer called. She wants to discuss increasing her visitation time. A year ago, that message would have sent my blood pressure through the roof. Now I just felt tired. Bridget would always be part of our lives because she was the kids' mother, but she no longer had the power to destroy our peace. I texted back, set up a meeting, but nothing changes without the kids' agreement. As the sun set behind the trees in our backyard, I realized something I hadn't expected. I was happy. Not the complicated, conditional happiness I'd felt during my marriage, but genuine contentment with a life we'd built from the ashes of betrayal. My unfaithful wife had come home happy from her date with her lover that day, but the kids and I were already gone. It had been the start of my revenge, but more importantly, it had been the start of our real life.